You ever walk away from a conversation and realize you've been carrying someone else's emotions like luggage you didn't even pack? Yeah, that feeling, that heaviness is what happens when you give someone access to your peace without checking their baggage first. It's what happens when you let what someone says about you become louder than what you know about you. And if you're tired of always being angry, always being on edge, always being bothered by people who don't live your life, don't carry your burdens, and don't know your heart, then let's talk. Because here's the truth. Peace isn't found when everyone else stops being offensive. Peace is found when you stop giving them the power to offend you. Let's get one thing straight. Anger is not weakness. It's not failure. It's not something to feel ashamed about. It's actually wisdom wrapped in fire. It's your body saying, hey, something just crossed the line. Anger is a signal, not a sentence. You're not broken for feeling it. But the difference between someone who feels anger and someone who lives in it is what they do next. Do you pause? Do you breathe? Do you respond? Or do you react? See, reacting is automatic. That's the easy part. Someone throws shade, you throw fire. Someone pokes a wound, you swing back. But response, that's built. That's practiced. That's choosing to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. One controls the temperature, the other just reflects it. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be walking around like a mirror for everybody else's mess. You want to stop being angry? Then stop believing that what they say defines you. People speak from pain. People speak from insecurity. People speak from stories they haven't healed from yet. So when someone lashes out, when someone talks behind your back, when someone disrespects your time, your boundaries, or your name, pause and remind yourself that behavior is a mirror. It reflects them, not you. The moment you realize that, you stop making their issue your identity. And here's the secret no one talks about. You are allowed to protect your peace. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to feel guilty for saying no, walking away, blocking a number, or not replying. You are not a bad person for refusing to carry what someone else keeps dumping on you. Boundaries are not cruelty. They're clarity. They say, this is where I end and you begin. You don't get to throw chaos into my life and call it conversation. And I know sometimes silence feels like surrender. Like if you don't clap back, they win. But real strength is sitting in a storm and choosing not to throw lightning. Real strength is looking someone in the face, knowing they tried to break you and walking away anyway. Real strength is realizing that some people want your reaction more than they want your reason. And the best thing you can do for your peace is not give them either. But let me say this because it matters. Sometimes we're angry not because of what happened, but because of the story we tell ourselves about what happened. They didn't invite you, so you tell yourself you're not valued. They criticized you, so you tell yourself you're not enough. They left you on read, so you tell yourself you're not worth it. But what if the story isn't true? What if their actions had more to do with their own chaos than your character? What if you stopped assigning meaning to moments that were never meant to define you? Because here's the truth. You will never control how people show up, but you always control whether you give them a seat. You don't have to let someone live rent-free in your head just because they knocked on the door. Not every comment needs a comeback. Not every slight needs a speech. Some things deserve your silence more than your sentence. So if you're tired of being angry, start choosing peace on purpose. Start choosing clarity over chaos. Choose response over reaction. Choose yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred one. Because your peace isn't a luxury. It's your responsibility. And every time you feel the heat rise, every time your chest tightens, every time your fists clench, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this mine to carry? And if it's not, put it down. Walk away. Reclaim your calm. because you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand you. And when you do, nothing they say, nothing they do, and nothing they throw will ever bother you the same way again. Because peace, real peace, that's power. Quiet, unshakable, yours. Emotions aren't enemies, they're messengers. Anger, frustration, annoyance, these aren't signs that something is wrong with you. They're signals that something around you or inside you needs attention. But most of us were never taught how to read these signals. Instead, we were taught to either explode or suppress. And both options lead to damage. Exploding pushes people away, and suppressing makes you feel like you're not even allowed to be human. But what if you learn to sit with anger, not as a judge, but as a student? What if instead of reacting, you paused and asked, what is this feeling trying to tell me? When you start seeing emotions as messengers, you begin to build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in understanding instead of control. Anger might be trying to tell you that your boundaries are being violated. Annoyance might be whispering that you've been tolerating too much for too long. Frustration might be a signal that your values are being stepped on or your needs are being ignored. These emotions aren't trying to destroy your peace. They're trying to protect it. They rise up not to harm you, but to help you recognize where something in your life feels unsafe or unbalanced. But that requires a shift. Most people try to manage anger by either blaming others or blaming themselves. But what if anger is neutral until we decide what to do with it? It's like a fire alarm. If you ignore it, you risk danger. If you panic and break everything in sight, you cause chaos. But if you pause, listen, and trace the signal to its source, you act with wisdom. Anger, in this way, becomes a teacher. It's not telling you to lash out. It's inviting you to look deeper. This is where emotional maturity begins. You start to realize that just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately. Feelings are valid, but they are not final. They need to be understood, not obeyed blindly. That space between the emotion and your reaction is where your power lives. That's the place where growth happens. And when you can sit with your emotions, name them, and learn from them, you become less reactive and more intentional. You also begin to forgive yourself because now you're not ashamed of feeling something strong. You understand that those emotions came for a reason. And just like pain in your body lets you know something needs healing, emotional discomfort is just a prompt that something inside needs attention. It's not weakness, it's awareness. And the more awareness you build, the less anger controls you. You stop fearing the feeling, and instead you start using it, not to burn bridges, but to build better ones, not to control people, but to understand your own boundaries. Emotions are not your enemies. They're your compass. Listen to them, and they'll lead you home to yourself. What others say is a mirror, not a definition. One of the most powerful things you'll ever learn is that people's words reflect who they are far more than who you are. We live in a world where opinions fly freely online, in conversations, through passive-aggressive comments, even in silence that's loud with judgment. And if you're not careful, you'll start measuring your worth based on someone else's broken ruler. You'll start internalizing criticism that was never yours to carry. You'll believe that their tone, their dismissal, or their rejection means you're not enough. But that's not truth. That's projection. People project their own insecurity, pain, and unresolved issues onto others all the time. Someone who feels unseen will try to make you feel invisible. Someone who has been disrespected will try to lower your voice. Someone who's carrying shame might try to hand it to you with their words, but you don't have to accept it. Just because someone throws dirt doesn't mean You have to rub it into your skin. You are not a canvas for their unresolved emotions. You are a mirror for your own inner strength. This doesn't mean you become numb or pretend words don't hurt. They do. We're human. We're wired for connection, and rejection stings. But the goal isn't to stop feeling. The goal is to stop absorbing. When someone says something cruel, demeaning, or dismissive, try to pause and ask, is this about me or is this about something in them that has nothing to do with me? That question alone can give you the space to detach your identity from their reaction. It's not denial, it's discernment. You get to decide what enters your emotional space. Just like you wouldn't let a stranger walk into your home and rearrange your furniture, don't let people rearrange your peace. Not everyone gets a say in how you see yourself. Not everyone's words deserve weight. Some comments are just noise. Some opinions are just echoes of their own battles. And when you recognize that, you stop being offended so easily. You stop being rattled by every side glance, every dismissive tone, every comment designed to poke your pain. This kind of emotional separation takes practice. It's not about arrogance or indifference. It's about emotional boundaries. It's about saying, I hear you, but I don't receive that. It's about knowing that just because someone speaks doesn't mean they're speaking truth. And it's about realizing that you're allowed to see yourself through your own eyes, not through the lens of someone who hasn't done the work to see clearly. So when people try to define you with their hurt, step back. Hold up a mirror, let their reflection show them who they are. And then turn your mirror inward and remind yourself of who you are. You are not someone's insult. You are not someone's misunderstanding. You are not someone's projection. You are grounded, steady, and becoming wiser every time you choose not to take the bait. You control access to your peace. One of the most freeing truths you can live by is this: not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Peace is not something that just happens when the world gets quiet. Peace is something you protect. You don't wait for people to start treating you better. You don't wait for the drama to stop. You don't wait for apologies that may never come. You decide right now who gets access to your energy, your time, and your emotional space, because your peace is yours. And not everyone gets to have a key. We've been trained to feel guilty for creating space, to feel selfish for setting boundaries, to believe that being nice means always being available. But that's not kindness. That's self-abandonment dressed up as politeness. You were not put here to be drained by every person who demands your attention. You were not created to be everyone's emotional punching bag, and you are not required to explain why something feels off to you before you decide to step back. Boundaries don't need explanations. They need to be respected. Sometimes protecting your peace looks like not replying. Sometimes it's saying no without the guilt. Sometimes it's leaving the group chat. Sometimes it's walking out of the room. Not everything needs a dramatic exit. Some things just need distance. You don't owe anyone your continued presence at the cost of your own sanity. If someone repeatedly disrupts your peace, if every interaction with them leaves you more tense than calm, it's okay to reevaluate their place in your life. Peace is not passive. It's built through intentional choices. You're allowed to be unavailable. You're allowed to protect your mornings. You're allowed to shut your phone off. You're allowed to say, I'm not in the space to talk about this right now. You're allowed to change your mind. And the people who truly care about you, the ones who respect your growth, will never punish you for doing what's healthy for your mind and soul. Creating emotional boundaries doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you love yourself enough to know when a line needs to be drawn. And sometimes those lines aren't forever. Sometimes distance is temporary, but whether it's for a moment or a lifetime, you still have the right to create that space without apology, because your peace doesn't come from people understanding you. It comes from you understanding yourself. The world will always have noise. People will always have opinions. Some will test your limits just to see if you'll still let them in. But you get to be the gatekeeper. You get to choose what energy you let into your day, your mind, and your heart. And when you do that consistently, anger fades, frustration fades, because now your peace isn't left up to chance, it's protected by design. Silence is strength, not surrender. In a world that constantly pushes us to speak up, clap back, defend, explain, and argue, choosing silence can feel like losing. Like if you don't respond, you're weak. Like if you don't prove your point, you've been defeated. But real strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the power to walk away when your pride wants to stay and fight. It's the restraint to let someone think they've won while you preserve your energy and dignity. Silence is not giving up. Silence is wisdom in motion. There's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of clarity. Fear silence is hiding. It's shrinking yourself because you don't feel strong enough to speak. But clarity silence, that's different. That's the silence that says, I know exactly who I am, and I don't need to prove it to you. That's the kind of silence that confuses people who expect chaos. Because when someone tries to provoke you and you don't take the bait, you take away their power, you leave them with their own noise, and you keep your peace intact. It's easy to yell. It's easy to argue. It's easy to lash out. But those are reactions, not strength. Anyone can react. It takes real strength to pause, to breathe, to hold your tongue, not because you don't have words, but because you value your peace more than the argument, because you know what it costs to engage in battles that lead nowhere. And you've learned that not all disrespect needs a response. Some things don't deserve your energy. You have to understand that some people argue to feel power. Some people bait you just to watch you break. They know your triggers. They want your fire. And the more you feed into it, the more you exhaust yourself trying to win a game that's not even worth playing. Silence doesn't mean they were right. It just means you're not playing by their rules anymore. It means you've graduated from the need to be understood by people who never cared to listen in the first place. And silence doesn't mean you don't feel. Sometimes it means you feel deeply, but you've learned to choose peace over chaos. You've learned that some responses don't need to be verbal. Some responses come through your growth, your glow, your healing. Sometimes the best way to answer disrespect is to rise above it, not roll around in it. The more you grow, the more you realize that your peace is too expensive to waste on every insult, every argument, every misunderstanding. You stop needing to be heard in every room. You stop needing to clap back in every moment. And you start choosing peace, not because you're scared, but because you're strong enough to walk away. Because you finally understood that silence isn't weakness. Silence is power. It's control. It's a boundary. It's the space where healing lives. And that's where you belong. Response over reaction. That's where the shift happens. That's where you stop living on emotional autopilot and start living with purpose. See, reaction is immediate. It's raw. It's what happens when you let your emotions take the wheel before your mind even buckles its seatbelt. Reaction is when someone pushes your buttons, and before you even know it, you've said something you regret or acted out of anger. It feels powerful in the moment, but it almost always leaves you feeling drained, misunderstood, or even ashamed. But response, that's intentional. That's grown. That's mature. Response is the pause between what happens and what you choose to do next. And that pause changes everything. When you learn to respond instead of react, you take back your power. You stop letting people control your emotional state with their moods, their words, or their actions. You stop being a puppet pulled by whatever is happening around you, and you start becoming grounded, stable, and calm, no matter the chaos. Responding doesn't mean you're detached. It means you're aware. It means you can feel the heat without becoming the fire. Most of us grew up in environments where reacting was the norm. We saw people yell, slam doors, throw insults, or withdraw into silence when they were upset. So when we get triggered, our nervous system goes into those familiar patterns. But familiarity doesn't equal wisdom. It just means it's practiced. And if you can practice a reaction, you can also practice a response. It starts small. Someone says something rude, you feel the fire rising, but instead of snapping, you breathe, you pause, you ground yourself. You ask, what do I really want from this moment? Because if all you want is to release tension, then yelling might feel good for 5 seconds. But if what you want is peace, dignity, and clarity, then you choose a better path. Responding doesn't mean you always stay silent. Sometimes it means speaking truth with firmness and respect. Sometimes it means expressing your boundaries clearly. But the difference is your emotions don't control you. You control your emotions. You decide the tone, the timing, the words, and that's power. That's peace. That's the kind of emotional intelligence that builds strong relationships and protects your energy. Every time you respond instead of react, you build inner strength. You build trust with yourself. You show yourself that you're not at the mercy of others. You're in control of you. And you begin to notice how much lighter life feels when you're not constantly cleaning up the messes left behind by impulsive reactions. You begin to realize how peaceful it is when you don't take every comment as a cue to fight. You become more observant, more centered, more unshakable. And here's the truth. Most situations don't even need a big response. They just need a wise one, a calm one, a patient one. And when you show up that way, you're not just preserving peace in the moment. You're training your nervous system to stop going into battle over every bump in the road. You're creating space to breathe, think, and choose. And that choice, that's freedom. Let go of the story you're telling yourself. This one runs deep because the truth is, much of the anger we carry isn't about what actually happened. It's about what we believe it meant. Someone didn't reply to your message and you instantly feel disrespected. Someone gave you a strange look and now you're spiraling, thinking they hate you. Someone forgot your birthday and suddenly you're convinced you don't matter. But the event itself isn't always the root of your pain. It's the story you wrapped around it. It's the meaning you assigned to it based on your fears, your past, and your wounds. We're all storytellers. Whether we realize it or not, we're constantly creating internal narratives to explain what's going on around us. And those stories shape how we feel. They shape how we react. They shape how long we hold on to things. But here's the catch. Just because you told yourself a story doesn't mean it's true. Just because it feels real doesn't mean it's reality. The mind is powerful. It fills in gaps with assumptions, especially when emotions are involved. And when those assumptions go unchecked, they start to feel like facts. Maybe you were rejected once, so now every delay feels like abandonment. Maybe you were judged harshly growing up, so now every bit of silence feels like disapproval. Maybe someone hurt you deeply, and now every disagreement feels like betrayal. Those stories didn't come from nowhere. They came from pain, but pain doesn't always tell the truth. It tells a version of the truth based on your past, not your present. And if you don't pause and challenge that narrative, you'll keep reliving the same emotions over and over, even when nothing is actually wrong. Letting go of the story doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means asking yourself, what else could this mean? It means giving people the benefit of the doubt when you can. It means checking your assumptions at the door before they lead you down a road of unnecessary hurt. Maybe that person was distracted, not disrespectful. Maybe they were going through something heavy, not trying to hurt you. Maybe they simply made a mistake, not a statement about your worth. When you change the story, you change the feeling. You stop taking things so personally. You stop creating conflict where there is none. You stop carrying tension that doesn't belong to you. And instead of reacting out of fear, you respond from a place of clarity. You make room for peace by refusing to let your past hijack your present. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice. It takes awareness. It takes courage to admit that sometimes your own mind is what's keeping the anger alive. But when you do the work to rewrite those stories, when you decide to tell yourself something better, something true, something kind, you begin to free yourself. And that's when you realize you were never bothered by them. You were bothered by what you believed about them. Change that belief, and everything starts to feel a whole lot lighter.